include those costs, or we can't include those fees, because it's just, this really is an animal all of its own. So I think that, you know, if there has to be a compromise or a plea bargain, I think that we have a lot more potential in the local market with a scaled down version compared to what we're trying to do now. And at that point, we're gonna have to try and get any and all players to the table. And, you know, not to completely discount Reno, but providing healthcare services for inmates in California is once again its own creature, completely separate from what the requirements are in Nevada or some of the other states. So and not to say it couldn't be done, but it really is a different thing.
But we can get a hold of the clinic up in Beaver and forward the RFP out to them too.
I don't know if that was something like that would work with Simpson or not, you know, I mean, I know that they're ambulance, but it may be a benefit to the local community.
Oh, we can send it to them in worst case.
John, what's Washoe County do?
They actually just signed a deal with Armor, who's one of the big four I was talking about, and Armor has yet to sound off and give us any thoughts yet. Some of the scouting report in the field was Armor probably wouldn't participate because they, at the time when we put this out, didn't have any in California. But the fact that they just landed that big contract with Washoe, that's going to give them pretty hefty infrastructure close to us.
Richard, that's one of our topics of conversation.
One of the other big ones is CFMG, and it's a company who does Siskiyou, Shasta, Buttes, just going out today, correct, or did they?
They have CFMG and they're out, they're about a month and a half ahead of us right now, Butte is. Butte's been a ton of help with us, you know, getting this put together. So CFMG's close as well, at least in those neighboring counties.
So the counties, like the northern California counties, can't put together a coalition to hire medical help in their jails? Have you approached Shasta, Modoc? Just throwing names out there, Butte.
Yeah, Butte's a CFMG county, Shasta's a CFMG county. I couldn't tell you, Tom, what Modoc's doing right now. I can tell you this, CFMG has 31 of the 58 counties throughout the state. They seem to be the heavy lifter in this field. Some counties are able to do it with their public health. That's a challenge for us because in speaking with our local public health, frankly, they can't get candidates. They can't get public health nurses right now, let alone nurses that would be able to come in and work in the jail.
Well, I guess my question is, have you had any dialogue with these contiguous counties?
I talked with Plumas about their jail operation, jail medical, and they do it through a local cooperative, but the difference is, the hard part is, even though we're a small county, we're quite a bit different. If you look at our jail, quite a bit different than Modoc and Plumas.
Got it.
You know, Plumas, they have a very low number of realigned offenders who are there for a long period of time. We have 45 to 50, so we have more people there for a longer time. We have to provide a broader range of medical services to. So that's the hard part. The hard part, they're operating basically like we did for forever, or we did for a long time, and the problem is, like John said, that's inadequate under our current circumstances, where Plumas and Modoc likely will be able to get by with that kind of a model for a longer period of time. So I know our jail medicals increased a great deal from the prior contract to this current stopgap contract, and there's no easy answer.
No, I know that, and I just was throwing that out there to see if we could band together as counties.
Now there is, once we have,
And I'm sure you guys have already thought of that.
there's some major medical insurance we can't get through, CSAC,
CIA, yeah. We had talked with Sierra, Plumas, perhaps Modoc, about obtaining this insurance through CSAC EIA because there's a minimum number of inmates. They basically said they don't want anything to do with those other counties because they're too small and unpredictable, but they would entertain us as a standalone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and one thing about the RFP, I mean, one part of it, it does control some of our costs on hospital visits. That would be part of the overall agreement. A couple things there. One, right now, anything after the hours of the doctor's there, it's an automatic ER visit. It costs us a lot of money. If if they have the incentive to treat them on site, as on-site nursing coverage, so they can triage issues, it'll reduce the number of hospital visits. And hospital visits below a certain dollar amount, certain threshold would be covered by the contractor. So it really, in a lot of ways, it'll help control costs and make our costs more predictable outside of, you know, those, the ones that end up having serious medical issues having to be flown and exorbitant costs. And those we might be able to address through that CSAC TIA. So the combination of this program, we might end up with a contract that costs more upfront, but it helps control our costs overall and makes things more predictable.
Protects us a little bit.
Yes, it makes us eligible for this EIA for those extraordinary ones.
John, you said that the RFP's on our website?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's being
I need to read
advertised
that. I have
locally.
not read that.
If you go to lassencounty.org, it's right on the home
Yeah.
page, and you can click, and it's,
Okay,
you'll see there's a lot to it.
yeah, I imagine.
Thanks, John, thanks for the update. Thank you. Okay, we'll take public comment now on this item. Eileen?
I have a question, John. What percentage of the inmates, both in juvenile hall and the county jail, are in there for marijuana? If you know. You don't have to do that.
Well, I didn't know none for juvenile hall, and I don't think we have any right now in the county jail for any kind of marijuana. We have some other issues related to drugs, but I couldn't tell you one right now. I don't think for marijuana.
So if California passed marijuana being legal, it wouldn't impact this at all?
Well, there are times we have people that are in our jail for cultivation, for these large-scale grows, when for some of the bigger, marijuana grows that we've had in our county. There have been times where we have had people in jail, we just don't at the moment. And sometimes those get picked up by the feds. There's a lot of things that impact that.
So in your opinion, if California made marijuana legal, it wouldn't impact this problem?
Again, there are times we do have people in jail, but it's just not today.
But, yeah, a lot of people have a misconception that there are a ton of people, our jails are full of these low-level drug offenders. And, I mean, other than, we do have drug users, but that doesn't apply to marijuana. People on methamphetamine and things that are found in the influence book at jails on a repetitive basis, at some point, they keep repeating, they end up spending some time in jail. But overall, there aren't, especially as it relates to marijuana, there aren't very many at all low-level offenders in jail for marijuana.
Isn't this a misdemeanor, marijuana?
Well, it's an infraction now, but,
Simple possession, you can't even be booked for, it's a ticket.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it just. No, that answered my question.
So it's less serious than a parking ticket.
You couldn't get booked today if, just for simple possession. It's a ticket.
John, we're gonna take up your, is there any other comment on this before we move on? Okay, we'll move on to your emergency item, E5.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Over, I agree with, a little tired, so I'll regroup and try again. So what I've got before you today is a local disaster declaration that we declared. It should have been on the 2nd, I think yesterday early on. Kind of the timeline is how this panned out. It's all due to the wildfire which is burning west of Little Valley, and that's on the 30th of July. And it progressed rapidly towards the east and the northeast through that time period. We triggered evacuations of Little Valley on the 1st, working with the sheriff and his staff. And the incident commanding that had place at that time was pretty small. We had implemented closures on Little Valley Road, and then worked with getting the citizens out of the area. That was a challenge for the sheriff and his staff, because they didn't quite see the seriousness of the situation. But so we have the local declaration. The governor declared
the same time we were talking about it, we were parallel in thoughts, but not talking to each other essentially. But, so the governor has declared a state of emergency for pretty much the whole north state, at least northeastern corner of the state. We did put in for an FMAG, which is a federal reimbursement funds for this fire. That was approved in the evening of the 2nd. Those are very challenging to get. They're very, very strict criteria. They didn't even bat an eye at this. They approved the Eiler, which is Half Creek, the Bald, which is Little Valley, and then the Day Fire, which is Lookout. Approved them all in a very, very short order. So in that time frame, we implemented our local mutual aid plans with both fires. We have Dean and his staff up there. A very rapid, I can't even describe how fast the system went into effect, but it took many, many days to ramp up. We're still playing catch up. So basically with this declaration to you, we have to bring it to you for ratification within 7 days of the declaration. So that's why we're here today with you for that ratification of that. Kind of where if you'd like, I can give you a rundown of where we're at with the fire and why we're doing this for Little Valley, what our thought process is, where the fire's going, and the like.
Sure.
I won't take a lot of time on this, but I'll use the map to kind of show you. So just to kind of give you scale of the map, basically the 2-inch square is 1 mile. Little Valley. Little Valley sits right here. It's actually a community itself. So you got Little Valley Road to the north up to Pittville, with MacArthur being off the map up in here. The fire started over here on the 30th on Bald Mountain. It was a lightning strike, and it burnt on that mountain for part of the day, 24 hours or so, until the weather changed, and it started moving this direction towards. It was going north of Little Valley at that point. I couldn't get a progression map to show you the timeline, how it went, but it went quick, very, very rapidly. When we got up there with the evacuations, it was this finger right here that triggered the evacuations, because the normal progression of the wind is to the northeast. A typical Lassen County wind, it blows the same time, same direction every day. And that's what it did that one day, but then for some reason, it decided to burn south, and it got down close to Little Valley. So they picked up these little fingers and stopped them, which that was overnight. But the progression of this flank started pushing south into the Lassen forest. This piece is why we still have evacuations in place, because this piece is basically unchecked in the sense that they haven't been able to put in line and have a hole. So what we're worried about is typical Lassen County southwest winds pushing it across Little Valley Road, through Little Valley, Dixie Valley, and points east. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't know why. It's just the weather out there with both the Half Creek fire and this one is just not normal. There hasn't been any wind at all. Very, very light, very, very minimal winds. But the reason it's so large is the fuels are drought stressed. They're extremely dry. I can't even describe what I'm seeing out there. But a simple pine tree, a 10-foot tall pine tree that torches out, will cast a shower of sparks that will go a quarter mile, just drift, real slow like snowflakes do. And they drop and they start new fires. And with all those fuels dry out here, we have a system we use to determine probability of ignition, and it's based on a scale of 1 to 100, and we're in the 80 to 100 range right now. It's so dry. So that's why this thing is getting so big. It just keeps self-propagating as time goes on. This is the 22 road through here that goes to Little Valley down to Factory. We were hoping to hold it there, and that didn't work out. It's already past that. As of this morning, we're right at or just under 40,000 acres on this one alone. If it keeps doing this, and they can hold this piece, then this is not going to be as big of an issue. But as it stands right now, we're holding evacuations in place for this at least through today, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to try and go back up there after we're done here today to see how this piece worked last night.
What sort of cooperation have you had from the folks there to evacuate? I mean, when we had the board meeting there a couple months ago, I mean, one of the things that was startling is that somebody had stole the gas from the fire truck, so I mean, you even have a fire truck to fight the fire. I mean, not that it's gonna fight this kind of fire. I mean,
You know, it was mixed. Our guys, the good thing, we have, like Scott Withrow, he's our newest sergeant assigned to that Big Valley area, and he knows almost all the people in that town, just over the years, got to know them, so he's been able to do a good job at convincing most of them to leave. We do have some holdouts. You know, some people have,
what about that group home or group?
they left early. They left early on. The Crumbs,
It's actually their week to go home and visit their families,
yeah.
so.
So the ranch is still occupied, but they have pretty good defensible space around that ranch. So we're not as concerned about them, but most of the residents have left. There are a few stragglers, but we've identified the places where there's still people there. If it starts to move, we're gonna give them one more chance to move out. And once we move people out of the area, we have a responsibility to maintain security. We need to make sure that people don't come back in there, or the people that are left aren't stealing everything from their neighbors. So we have to maintain that security. And then there's a ton of fire apparatus going in and out Little Valley Road. And also to keep people from going back there, we've had to maintain a roadblock up there on Little Valley Road. So we've been keeping a couple people, one on roadblock, one doing security patrols. And then we've had to try to keep, at least during the daytime, some form of a supervisor. John was up there Friday, Saturday. Eric's been there every day. Eric's done an awesome job for us, working with us. I was with Kevin Jones and I were up there yesterday, and today we have Scott Withrow up there. So we try to keep a supervisor who's staying in contact with the command center and keeping our guys informed as to what's going on.
Well, it was pretty dry looking when we were there in April, so I'm sure the last couple of months have not helped it at all.
And it's only August 1st, and we still have another good 6, 8 weeks of drying before we have rains in theory. I don't know if it's coming or not. Today, there's cloud cover and monsoonal moisture pushing up, so near rain, that's whatever you gotta do to get it far up north to get on those 3 fires up there. Right now, it's down by Doyle, is where the main moisture is lying. We're hoping it gets this way. But from this point to here is about 2.5 to 3 miles in distance. There's trigger points in here identified. If the fire progresses or spots are crossing, they're gonna implement more action with dozers and maybe lighting the fire to try and pull it back. There's all kinds of tactics they got that they can use, but the way it burned when it hit this bush, the fire head was kind of right in here. It was a finger, kind of dipped down like this. It did this in about a day. And there's 1, 2, 3, it's 4 miles, 4 to 5 miles, that it did basically in an afternoon. So the fire behavior it's none that I've seen in my 20 years.
And that's the difficult part, like Eric said, if we get a prevailing winds, it could be the Little Valley in no time at all.
What about the heat content? Can you quantify that or measure that?
As far as bringing my heat content.
In terms of hot, very hot, super hot?
Oh, unreal.
It's,
The reason I asked that, because when they had the fire up in Willow Creek Valley there, kind of on the road going up to Eagle Lake Summit, and it was mostly rock, lava rock with cheatgrass and not a lot of trees or sagebrush or whatever. And we went out there and got a tour of that, and Bob Taylor was saying it was kind of like really bizarre behavior. But what it was is the rocks were transferring the heat. And so it was, I mean, rocks don't burn, but they convey the heat content. And because of where the fire started, the way it spread up there was very similar, like except it was going in the other direction. So even though the prevailing wind might be this way, the heat was transferring in an opposite direction. I remember he was just saying that CDF was just kind of like, wow, we've never seen this before.
This is above that.
It's above that.
It is just, I can't
My house,
describe it.
I live probably 30 miles from that, the way it crow flies, you get the ash of that, and I kid you not, I had a piece of pine bark the size of a nickel that was on the sidewalk of my house. And I could see the big fire, and it's probably 15 miles away, and you can see the trees building up, and you can see it falling in front of you. It's,
Over on the Island Fire, which is Half Creek, they had they call it a tornado, basically that. And that had fire in it that came off of a hillside through timber. And it was uprooting trees, snapping trees off, and we're talking 20-50-foot trees. And then taking them up in the convection column with it and then spitting them out. They were probably 600-700 feet in the air. And they went out and confirmed what they saw, that it was poles and snapped off stumps out in that. And it's just, there's people that,
Fire tornado?
I mean, we have fire worlds that you see. I mean, those, but they're typically smaller, they're maybe 100 foot tall or 50 foot. Those are relatively common, larger fires, but one that was so organized where the whole smoke column had a twist to it. Yeah, there'll be video coming out. This stuff will be in the training videos. It hasn't, we haven't seen it. There's 35-year veterans that I've been talking to that have never seen something like that. And it's just because the fields are so dry. So I'm with stuff like this where we have infrastructure threatened here, and on Little Valley Road, all the concentrations right here. This does not get much attention, just because they want to make sure this does not get consumed. So these pieces over here, and with resource drawdown, we don't have enough stuff. We're running out. You have,
How many men or equipment do you have on this?
I'll have to look at my notes. I think it's 1,200, I believe, on this one.
There are a lot, they had engines from all over.
It was the day fire, they were saying it was 1,600 personnel and 40 dozers, you said?
Yeah, that was on Saturday, they had like 1,200 people and 40 dozers, like 9 airplanes, and that was just on day fire. I don't know about this one, the Iowa fire. The Iowa fire is getting a lot of resources down there, it's burning.
Yeah, and the day fires are actually looking much, much better. I think today is kind of their, if they can hold what they've got today, I think you're gonna see a lot of stuff. They're already starting to reassign stuff from the day fire to the Eiler and this one. It started yesterday. So the day, I think, is turned the corner. But it's the fact that we had there's 13 major fires in the state right now, and 10 of them are Northern California, and they all kind of jumped off in about a 4 or 5 day period. And it doesn't take but about 2 or 3 of them to kind of tax the system. So they're bringing in stuff from Colorado, Montana, I mean, they're reaching far and wide. It's gonna be a long haul. Any questions on that?
Thank you for what you do. I mean, you know, it's, every year or whatever, you know, when this contract and stuff comes up for you guys, you know, you come up and you try and, I'm not saying you try and sell it, but you know, that's part of your deal is to sell your services and, you know, and I tell you what.
I'm not a used car salesman by trade, but
And you know, and it's,
No renegotiation.
every time you need to change the season where you come for the
Yeah,
contract.
your
Yeah,
contract.
you come out and get winter.
so what you're saying, I should put the contract on the consent
Yeah,
calendar.
it's in August.
Right through.
Yeah.
I think I take it an August deal.
And, but I tell you what, and every time, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. And every year seems to come to a time like this where, you know, the value is really
So,
shown. Thank you.
That's what we do.
Rick Washball, the Norfolk Fire Chief, posted some photos, and I was having a look last night, yeah, it's just terrific.
Jeff, I ran into Jeff Fontana yesterday, and he indicated that if you really want to see, and this would be more the Eiler fire, but it could possibly be these two, but the Intermountain News, which is newspaper in Berkeley, and it's theimnews.com is the website, but they've got an online version, and the guy that's the editor, or one of the people up there in the paper, has actually gone out and ridden with several crews and stuff, and has captured, you might even have one of those fire tornadoes or something, but that's a good site to get good information about what's happening in the Bernie area, and that's just right next to this.
And I mean, the Bernie fire is kind of overshadowing this because of the values at risk, and you got a ton of homes. 89 corridor ran right through that.
Yeah.
It wasn't even there.
Well, the fire
Starting
side,
down on
the
Bernie
fire
now.
side lounge or restaurant is totally burned up.
Right. So, and those two fires were ran together under one team in a unified command, and that still holds today. And they're gonna split them. I believe they're probably gonna transition tomorrow, and the Eiler is gonna be its own organization, and the ball's gonna remain its own organization. Because it was Middle Sioux
a motion to adopt the resolution, that's something we.
Mr. Chairman, the same typographical error exists on this resolution,
Special needs.
Special meeting.
special meeting rather than
Regular. All right, we'll take, public comment, but we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, who is the motion?
Supervisor Chapman, I think Aaron was
Okay,
the first
thank you.
to go. Second. All right, is there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Alrighty, so, sure.
Going back to the federal fire management assistance grant, is this going to include some of the range up there as far as the resource and the possible loss of burned up cattle? Is this going to have some impact for the SBI that had a bunch of fire or Roseburg or any of the other resources where we can salvage, harvest the timber and reforest?
I'm not sure how far-reaching it is. It's the first one I had to deal with, so I'll have to do research on it. I know it's reimbursement for sure above, for county costs, above and beyond normal operating expenses. So the sheriff's overtime for his staff to sit on that roadblock and do the evacuations, those kind of things are for sure guaranteed in that. But I'll get the answers for you, and I'm not sure how far-reaching it is.
And the other question I actually had this issue coming before was the water that they're taking out of the stockpiles and going from private, and is there gonna be some reimbursement for that stuff?
Typically, the incident, as long as they're identified and the landowner is contacted, which they try and make contact with those owners, if it's their water, they will either, one, replace the water or send an agreement for monetary reimbursement. It is very customary. So yes.
And then I guess my last question is up there around Little Valley, the Fire Safe Council is gonna do some work up there. I mean, is the fire gotten that yet, or how'd the fire react in that, or do
I
you know?
don't know if I don't think it's gotten down to that fuel break and how far along they are on that fuel break. Yes, it's not that close to the town yet.
Supervisor Chapman.
Yeah, just, given the report and given the potential catastrophe or devastation that could be impacting private property, especially property that has dwellings or buildings and so forth. And given the input we had this morning in your public comment, is it possible, Richard, that you could communicate with the building and community, the planning folks, that maybe these enforcement letters that they'd like to send out right on the spot, that we put a moratorium and, at least a 30-day buffer between when an incident happens to when we kind of start saying, okay, these are the rules and you gotta start dealing with, because I just think that this kind of is reprehensible to do it so quickly. And if you have a bunch of these properties all of a sudden are impacted, and our guys are up there sending letters like within, before the fire is even really out or the body's even cold, I think that's something that we should
What
be thinking about.
what I would prefer to do, and maybe I'll consult with counsel in the department, is to work on the tone of the letter. I think there may be a liability issue associated with us having knowledge that there's a hazardous or dangerous condition and us not performing the acts we're required to perform, or delaying those for 30 days.
Because I could see them being in a position where they could be sending out dozens of those kind of letters all at once, and we wouldn't just have one person, we'd have a whole, they'd be having a line going out to Nevada Street. And I just, I think we need to come up with a better way of dealing with it, because that.
I agree, but I don't think simply delaying the notification is the answer, because I think that may open us up to some liability issues.
Well, okay, I just, do what you have to do.
Is there any more questions or no public comment? Okay, so, thank you. So, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Greg.
sir.
Thank you guys for all your work.
All right, we'll take up item D3, planning and building services.
Oh, I'm sorry, that item is,
Postpone.
postponed.
Well, we really didn't, so we can now.
Okay, so we'll postpone that till next week, so we're not ready for that item.
Three?
That's their
Let's postpone till next week.
So, Richard, we'll go on to, D4.
Okay,
Anything under D4? Oh, sorry, you guys spoke.
Well, I was trying to see if John would get us a new resolution for Mr. Lassen to sign.
we can